Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from Chatpile, Cool World. When I put out my short review of Chatpile's debut album God's Country in 2022, it was frustrating that it felt like I just wasn't connecting as strongly with their punishing riffs and despair. It was certainly texturally impressive and reasonably well written to build up the horrific wallow, and the quasi-ironic grimace memes around their marketing made a certain amount of sense so you could detach so you could survive in the atmosphere. I just wasn't as pulled in as I wanted to be. But what it also meant is that the critical acclaim around their debut guaranteed there'd be hype and attention for their follow-up Cool World this year, with Ben Greenberg, most known for me with his work with Uniform and Algiers among others, stepping up on production. And I really wanted to hear where the hell they'd go. And you know what, I'm a few minds with this project, because on the one hand, I think a lot of the elements that allowed certain fans to embrace them quasi-ironically have been pushed away. The riffs are still punishing, but with more gestures at filthy noise rock and post-punk, and even Dirt by Alice in Chains-esque grunge than ever before. It contributes a very different, harrowing texture to the nightmare fuel, especially when the light traces of ironic deflection have largely been thrown aside. Chatpile's writing has been dark before, but minus much of the contorted theatricality and with a bigger conceptual focus, it's a much more grim, harrowing listen. Now, the band has described this project as a big anti-war statement, and yeah, it gets there by plowing into the muck from every angle. The dehumanization and broken social contract of I am dog now, paired with the PTSD nightmare of milk of human kindness, which is necessarily preceded by Masc, challenging the toxic machismo that prevents men from expressing more vulnerability, and that can only spur a cycle of violence on a larger scale. But most pronounced are the statements of shame and disgust existing in a nation that would profit from imperialism and genocide. Shame is the most explicit moment, and the New World does not mince words around the dismissive brutality of colonialism. But then you get a song like Funny Man, which shows how profoundly pathetic it can be as a vassal who will then try to prop up such a backwards-looking regime, especially as within the modern capitalist system, you're required to give your body in service of the work. And while there are moments of pride in it, you can almost believe they ultimately feel so goddamn hollow, especially by the time No Way Out illustrates that sense of futility trying to expect an escape. And at the album's midpoint, we get Camcorder and Tape, something closer to God's Country in the small-town framing of the serial killer, then followed by the rural depravity of the violent response. And yet the more I thought about it, it's not hard to extrapolate the small-scale, emotionally charged violence in those moments to what is seen now on a global scale when it comes to the petty and callous justification of horrors. Dress it up in whatever fancy language you choose, it is not that far removed. And in a rather fortunate timing and echo of Godspeed You Black Emperor's most recent album, the recording is highlighted as a method of numbing deflection, be it representation or metaphorical in art, but even then, it can only hold back the tide for so long. In other words, the tonal and thematic consistency is considerably more effective for me, and thus when it comes down to the production, I'll be candid, I'm still not fully there, although I'd say it's a welcome expanded step. For one, the nu metal influence has been amplified, especially in the bass lines, picking up a harder slap alongside the riffs at various stages of filth, but Ben Greenberg shows the majority of his presence in the addition of a lot of haunted post-punk reverb, of which I think there are slightly mixed results. On the one hand, I actually really liked the 90s grunge flavor that crept across Shame, or how it accentuated the haunted royal of Funny Man and the extended desolate nightmares of Camcorder and Tape, or how it accentuated the smolder of Milk of Human Kindness, which has one of the most deceptively sharp melodic hooks on this project. And I really liked how Masc really took its time with the crescendo and Randy Hayer's exhausted vocals building the dramatic intensity. Now on the flip side, the reverb has the effect of dampening some of the treble frequencies across the project, which means some of the weirder noise rock guitar flourishes, and especially the cymbals as a whole, they just don't pop in the same way when the thicker murk suffocates the mix. I'm not exactly surprised, as this happened with Algiers as the underside of Power way back in 2017, and on some level it fulfills the same artistic purpose in showcasing the implacable forces arrayed against our protagonist, who is getting crushed underfoot, but it also serves to crush down some of the melodies from popping as strongly as they could. And when some of the noisier, weirder spikes have real promise, it feels like some of these songs lose some distinctive, higher frequency texture to really pop alongside the grooves and stand out. But overall, yeah, it might be contentious, but I think this is an improvement for Chat Pile and a stronger album than God's Country. Yeah, it's not as immediately funny or mimetic, but the expansions in atmosphere, sound, and theme, they do a lot to compensate while showing some real growth in those directions. In other words, it's harrowing, but it's a pretty great album. Absolutely worth hearing. If you haven't heard it, yeah, I think it's worth a shot. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop a subscription, drop comments. I gotta be honest, I know me saying that this is better than God's Country might get some pushback, but I honestly think it is. I think there was enough expansions in the sound that really connected for me. I was rather quite impressed with this. I didn't expect it to work, and ultimately, it came around. It clicked. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you guys want to help support the channel, well, I normally point you towards my Patreon, where you get access to my schedule and my Discord. But YouTube memberships were rolled out in this channel about a month ago. The more of y'all get involved there, the happier I'll be in terms of that specific development, especially as probably by the time this goes live, my live series Bandwidth will be going, which is around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every week on Thursdays. Hope to see you all there if you can actually get a chance. And hopefully it's all on time, because it's going to be a headlong rush to get this out. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.